Hello, and welcome back to What's Beyond Today. I'm Adam Bonomo, and first off, we've gotten such a good response from the first episode. Thank y'all so much. Today we're going to be talking about one of the realest forces in the game, holding it down since day one, gravity. Gravity is a natural phenomenon by which all things mass or energy are attracted to each other. It's what makes stars, causes planets to orbit. It holds our solar system together, and what makes it so you have weight here on Earth. Gravity is one of the four forces of the universe, along with electromagnetism, weak and strong nuclear force. They are what create the rules for the universe around us, and we could get into all of them and how they work together in this beautiful symphony that is life as we experience it. Although today, let's just go over gravity. Now, gravity is something that has existed since the beginning of our universe. Well, kinda. We'll get there. Anyway, history has given the title Father of Gravity to Sir Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton is huge for gravity, as well as calculus and physics, and honestly he just took a huge step forward in the expansion of human knowledge. Now, the people of Newton's time obviously understood that there's a force holding us to the Earth. But what made what he did special is Newton's law of universal gravitation. He connected the gravity that we have an understanding of here on Earth and the gravity that has an effect on the universe around us. And he did it mathematically, which had never been done before that and was a really big deal. He gave us an equation to use to understand the cosmos. So how does it work? He found multiplying the inverse square of the mass of one object by the mass of another object, both over the distance of their center squared, you get the force of gravity. It seems simple enough, but this equation revolutionized the way we interact with the world, spawning countless inventions, sparking a renaissance on how we see the cosmos around us, inspiring many, and also got us off the ground and into the sky because we understood the rules we were facing. Newtonian gravity is comprehensive and could be used for almost any application, but it's still incomplete. Oxford proposed this rebuttal to Newton's attractive gravity. If gravity is an attractive force and exists all around us, why doesn't the universe collapse on itself? This troubled Newton because he saw physics as the language of God, and he knew that without this answer, his principle was incomplete. He tried to answer this question with this theory that there's this perfect amount of energy distributed throughout the universe, every star keeping every other star in check in this perfect web. Thing is, even Newton knew this was an incomplete theory. Because if a star were to ever go missing, there would be an imbalance, and the universe would start to collapse in on itself, and it would need some sort of godlike interference, constantly adjusting to make sure that everything was in check. It wouldn't be until almost 200 years after his death that Einstein would pick up the baton and finally answer this question with his theory of general relativity. Now, the main difference between Einstein and Newton's theories is Newton concluded that objects fall because they're being pulled by the force of gravity. Newton believed that space had a fixed background, everything pulling and pushing off of each other, and gravity transferred instantly. If the sun were to disappear, all the planets would fling away instantly. Well, Einstein saw these things differently. Einstein's theory of general relativity's gravity wasn't caused by any individual thing, but instead something much weirder. Gravity was a consequence of mass's influence on space. Einstein stated that gravity is more than just a force. It's a curvature in the space-time continuum created by mass. Now, this isn't a perfect way to describe what it would be like in a vacuum, but it might help you understand it more. Imagine you had a bowling ball sinking into the center of a trampoline, and then you had a tennis ball, and you were trying to roll it across the trampoline. You'd see that as the tennis ball got closer to where the bowling ball is, the more influence it would have on the tennis ball's trajectory. If you were to change the mass of the ball in the center, or the ball that's moving across it, it would actually result in a different amount of gravitational pull. What is this energy translated through in the vacuum of space? Isn't space full of nothing? There's no trampoline material holding us all up in the cosmos. Weirdly enough, these waves stretch and squash space-time itself. Gravitational waves travel at the speed of light, and since the sun sinks the space-time around it, planets are caught in its orbit, constantly rippling gravitational waves that travel at the speed of light. So since it takes light 8 minutes to get from the sun to us here on Earth, it would take 8 minutes after the sun's disappearance for us to notice anything here on Earth. Not an experiment I would like to test out practically, but it has helped shape our understanding of the cosmos. A way to imagine gravitational waves would be to think about a pond and the way the water ripples whenever you were to drop a rock in it. There's an initial event, and then there's waves radiating from the point of impact. Gravitational waves work the same way, but instead of being translated through water, they translate through the very fabric of reality itself. And it's using this fundamental principle of gravitational waves that led it so that we were finally able to find them in 2015. There are 4 types of gravitational waves, and the way that they are categorized are based on what causes them. There are continuous gravitational waves, caused by one singular object, like a neutron star. Since the spin is constantly happening, it's seen as one single note that's constantly emitted through the universe. Second up is compact binary gravitational waves, caused by two objects spinning in the universe, giving off a much more defined pattern than continuous gravitational waves. There are also stochastic gravitational waves, which it helps to know what stochastic means. It means random. They're small and from sources we're not able to really pin down. They're like a leftover pulse of force in the universe. Some scientists believe that they are leftover from the Big Bang itself, just echoing through the universe. Lastly, burst gravitational waves, which are a little disappointing because we're not exactly sure what they are or what they're like. They're these waves emitting from complex systems we don't know much about. They're like little bumps in the night. Although luckily, they have the most return on investment on finding out about because we don't know much about them. If gravitational waves were perceived in 1907, why did it take over 100 years for us to finally find them? Well, the squashing and stretching of the universe might not be as severe as we initially imagined. We had to build something that could detect even the tiniest movements, which weren't available to Einstein at the time. We can only imagine what he would be able to discover if he had today's technology. Enter LIGO, or LIGOs, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Observatory, or observatories. LIGO is a laser that's shooting down two perpendicular hallways, both 4 kilometers long, and then reflected back to the center. Each of these endpoints has these super rad sensors on them that can detect movement down to the size of just a few atoms. Really precise stuff. With these centers, we're hoping to detect ripples in space from massive objects in the universe. The thing is we need multiple of them to get a decent read on anything. And since they're stationed here on Earth, they're subject to forces that are outside of the scientists' control that could cause the lasers to dip, such as a truck driving by, or a farmer tending to their crops, or even an earthquake. Because of this, 2 or more LIGOs are essential to get a read on anything, and it's best that we keep them as far away from society and each other as possible. We have one stationed in the desert of eastern Washington state, and one in the forests of Louisiana. Since they aren't near each other, they don't share any of the same local noise. And since gravitational waves travel at the speed of light, if both of them got the same reading at roughly the same time, we would be able to conclude that was a gravitational wave. In order to prove this phenomenon, scientists would have to call the shots and predict a ripple that both the LIGOs would detect. The phenomenon that was selected was these two supermassive black holes absorbing each other in space. And they predicted the exact moment that this crazy grappling match would end, ending in this huge shockwave sent throughout the universe. Fortunately, both the LIGOs were able to get the same dip at the same time, thus proving the existence of gravitational waves. Also, weirdly enough, the event that happened over 1 billion years ago. Space, light, relativity, gravitational waves, it's all just so weird, man. What if we wanted to detect something that isn't one of the biggest moments possible in the universe? Not everything is going to give off the WrestleMania equivalent of the cosmos. Well, there are a couple problems. Not only is there local interference, but the Earth itself is giving off gravitational waves, thus drowning a lot of it out. So, it would help if we had an interferometer based in space. Space-based interferometer. Also, there's a limit to how far you can see whenever the interferometer's arms are only 4 kilometers long. So having it in space as well as much further apart would really help. If only there would already be a project that's in development that would change the way that we looked out into the cosmos forever. Y'all already know that NASA and the ESA have our backs. They're already all over this. Enter LISA, or the Laser Interferometer Space Antenna. They're going to be the series of 3 satellites based in yet another Lagrange point. Like what we talked about last time, one of those 5 points that are roughly 1 million miles away from Earth that are caught in this perfect balance of Earth and Sun's gravity to achieve perfect orbital motion. Each one of these satellites are going to be about 1 million miles away from each other, orbiting in a perfect equilateral triangle, sending lasers back and forth to each other just like LIGOs does here on Earth. It'll also be much more effective because the only thing it can detect are gravitational waves. If we see gravitational waves as a spectrum, then LIGOs was only able to see the craziest stuff going on in the universe. But with LISA, we'll be able to see a whole host of other waves, such as compact binary gravitational waves, the ones that are 2 celestial bodies orbiting each other. These are usually stars, black holes, or sometimes entire galaxies. We also might be able to see compact objects captured by a black hole, making it so that we can map the areas around a black hole, which is crazy to think about because we found all of this with gravity, this thing that has been around us our whole lives and we've experienced forever. Well, kinda. Einstein also predicted that there was this primordial soup in the beginning of the universe, where gravity and the other fundamental forces didn't exist in their current form. Because the universe is so hot after the initial expansion of the Big Bang, elementary particles couldn't form together. So atoms, cells, and molecules, the fundamental building blocks for the universe, didn't exist yet. You heat anything up hot enough and there will become a point where it can't hold itself together. Thus, mass didn't exist. If we were able to see how the universe acted during this time, it could change the way we see physics entirely. During this time, Einstein said that gravity would have a repulsive force instead of an attractive one. So since no objects had mass, that means gravity didn't pull anything together. And he believed any gravitational waves rippling off these elementary particles would actually push things away. Now, this is just a theory of his, but coming from one of the brightest minds we've ever had, it's cool to think about. We have no real reading on this yet, but with the information that we get from the James Webb Space Telescope and LISA, maybe that'll help shed light on how we can find out more about this primordial soup universe. It's wild to think about how far we've come. In 1903, we launched the first airplane, but now we're launching an antenna into outer space to help detect vibrations from stars that are rippling through the universe. That is just so crazy to me. That is crazy. With these interferometers, we aren't looking out into the night sky with our eyes or ears, but with gravity, giving us a whole new sense to see the universe. We're at the frontier of this. As this technology keeps developing, who knows what we'll be able to find? We could catalog stars and planets, map out our observable universe, detect any irregularities. It is truly a crazy undertaking, and right now the possibilities seem endless. The proposal for LISA was given in 2017, so it still has a lot of development to go through, but I know I'm excited to see what we find with it. But in order to store all this information, we're going to have to revolutionize the way we store data, and we'll talk about that next time. I'm Adam Bonomo, and that's what's beyond today.